Welcome back to the studio. Today we're going to be working on another one of the blocks in the kit, Radiant Garden. This was originally released as a block of the month, so sometimes you will hear me inadvertently say block of the month, but these are currently available as a kit. If you are or you know of a quilt shop that would like to offer this as a kit, that option is still available through the wholesale function of the business, but we still have them as a complete kit. We also usually have a sale on Applique at least twice a year, and this is something that you could put on your wish list if you create an account at urbanalements.com, and then when the sale comes up you already have something pre-selected and you know that you want it. Also, when you create a wish list on the website, I know we used to be able to have a function where you could email that to friends and family for when you have a birthday or an anniversary or a holiday. They could just choose something off of your wish list that you've already pre-selected. I believe that's still a thing. We are on block number 2. Again, this is going to be a square block, and I did all of my cutting for this in the first video for this series of Radiant Garden. I have already done one of the blocks, so I already know that I'm happy with the value of the background and the kit components. Whether you're happy with it or not, I haven't heard yet, so we'll just have to wait and see. I will be pulling out the light box to show you what the placement guide looks like on there, and with this background fabric, the light box tends to work best with this particular background. Sometimes it doesn't seem to help as much. On here it worked pretty good, and I'm referencing the last video, which was block number 1. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out my paper placement guide and press that, and then I'm going to get the light box back in place and some of my components out, and then I'll bring you back in. You'll also notice when I bring you back in that you'll be a lot closer to the presentation table. I have pulled out my paper placement guide, which is here. I'm going to trade out my block 1 color cover sheet for the block 2 color cover sheet and place that here so we can all reference that. You put that aside. I'm going to put aside my instructions. This comes with every kit. It tells you the steps in that I'm going to be showing you in the video of how to peel, place, and press the applique. I kind of use those because I've had so many of them here. I use them to stack up my backing papers, and then I can throw away all those little sticky bits without having them float all over the studio and get stuck to the floor. Then I can pull out my components packed by R. That's the first I've ever seen R. It's usually Vicky. And I'm going to put this aside. When I turn on my light box, you'll be able to see the pattern very clearly. And now I'm going to go about the business of just separating some of these shapes out. We're going to have several different sizes of circles, which is just one of the reoccurring themes of this particular kit. And some of them will be similar size. And then we have some of these shape pieces. I know this shape is going to be the flowers, so I'm going to go ahead and put those into like groups. Some of them will be leaves. I just always like to do this because it makes it less taxing when you're looking for a component to have all the similar components together. We have a lot of circles this time. I don't know if you would call these parentheses or question marks, asterisks. This one is folded to get it in the kit, so I'm going to go ahead and press that flat now and let that be cooling. I already have my iron on, so I can iron out that crease, because we don't want that crease to translate into the pattern itself. So I could be letting that cool. So first thing I'm going to do is try and line up my pattern as nice as possible to the paper pattern, and then I can go ahead and start putting my pieces on. All of these pieces are laser cut and they're pre-fused with Steam 2. They all have a paper backing. To get the paper off, you just slightly bend the fabric and it usually just comes off. You can see there's a sticky, shiny material on the back of the fabric. That is the fusible, and we just peel the paper off, and then we can go ahead and position our component. Using the placement guide, we can help determine which of the circles are to be utilized for each section. So I put my fuchsia flower, then it had a green circle, and then it had a blue center circle. So I know I'm getting these hopefully in the right place. By putting this flower down first, since there's only one of those, I know that that's one less thing that I have to do. This long piece here, again, is a single unit, so I could get that in place. Even though I did press this just a few minutes ago, it's already able to be peeled from its paper backing. And whenever a piece is this long, makes it a little trickier to get it in place. I don't know that I've developed any great trick for that, but fortunately, because this product is repositionable, if you don't get it right the first time, you can always lift it up and try it again, or as many times as you need to. So I'm just going to keep putting these pieces down. You can see we have both right and left of these, and so you just have to find the one that is positioned correctly. If you ever have an issue with the paper not peeling off, it's really stubborn, and I know that happens in some climates, you can always use a sharp object like a seam ripper or a clover pen and score the back paper with the sharp object just enough to get through the paper, and that gives you a place to bend the fabric over and get a grip of that paper and peel it off. And I've been doing these kits for quite a while, but I'm seeing some new flower elements here that I haven't seen before, so that's kind of exciting. Some of these flowers, like this one, are almost a trademark. When we send out a sample of the applique, this is the flower that we send. So it's kind of nice to see some of these other elements that I haven't seen before. If you have limited time, a kit like this is a great way to get some stuff done it would give you a great sense of accomplishment, even if you only have a short time to spend in the studio. But also, this is something that you could use with your friends to do like a gift for somebody. If you were doing, friends were all getting together and wanted to participate to make one of your teachers a gift from everybody. This is something you could all participate together, each of you working on a block. It could be a good wedding gift or a housewarming gift. And let's see what color this circle is. We can get that done. That looks like the right size. And what was the center? Green. And then this one was teal. The teal has a purple. If you have young kids, you could have them just put these pieces on the paper pattern, leaving the paper backing in place. It could be an educational way to give them eye-hand coordination. You could also, if they're a little bit older, they could actually help put the paper, the applique shapes in place using the pattern, knowing that they're repositionable. So if something needs to be repositioned before you fused, you could always do that. That way they have a sense of accomplishment, but also they would remember working on this project, and it becomes an emotional connection from their childhood. Now that I'm sort of waking up, the process is going a little bit faster for me. The caffeine from my Earl Grey tea is kicking in. And now all I have left are these flower petals. Where's this one go? Right at the moment, it looks like I have an extra, which is unusual. So let's see. We have a small, medium, and large. Okay, so now I have just the flower petals. These smaller ones look like the dotted ones. Put those first. I always try and get the tip of that position so it goes right down to the point. especially since the top is rounded, we're able to reposition that. I have to figure out some of these batiks get so similar that it's hard to determine which piece goes in which place. So before you fuse it, I would step back and look at it, examine it, study it, see that you're happy with the placement. Of course, when this is all said and done, and this is all fused into the background, and then the backgrounds are all sewn together and it's all quilted, no one's going to question the placement of one of the flowers. So don't beat yourself up too much if you are not sure about the exact placement of one of the components. As long as we get symmetry in there, we'll be good. And you can see as I reposition some of this stuff, some of the pieces are slightly off. And you can go over and over and over that, putting these pieces back. But as long as we get it pretty close, and it looks like I have an extra question mark. And I have actually a little package of little extra pieces I've garnered over the 3 years, and I hold on to these just in case I ever need anything. But I will say, if your kit is missing any one of these components, you could let support know, and they'll make sure that you get that missing component to get your kit complete. But I've never really had a missing piece. I've had pieces fall on the floor and I didn't find them for a little bit, but I have never had a missing piece. But today I have extra, and rather than try and put it in somewhere, I'm going to leave it out and put it in my extra stash. And now we're ready to get out the take away the light box, put in place our Teflon pressing sheet, and we can get to the fusing phase of this kit. I've taken a pretty good look to make sure that everything is as I want it. There's nice spacing in between everything. And now I'm getting ready to fuse. I have removed the light box because it would melt under the heat of the iron, and I have replaced it with a Teflon pressing sheet. My sheet is both underneath the block, and I'm going to fold it over on top. I'm going to use some steam from a misting bottle. Well, it's not steam, it's just mist. And I'm going to go ahead and mist all of the components. I don't use water in my iron because eventually an iron will leak. And if I don't ever put water in it, it can never leak. So I have put over the Teflon pressing sheet, and I have created a little envelope there to trap the heat and the steam to make sure that we're really getting a good fuse. the heat of the iron has to transfer through the top of the pressing sheet, so we need to allow for our timing on that. And so you have this heat setting, the quality of the iron, your ambient temperature to begin with. We have the moisture, which is required either in the iron or in a spray bottle. And then it's just a matter of time. I'm not going to be able to give you an exact time because we all have different settings on our iron, different irons. But we do need to test and make sure that the heat is transferring through all the layers. If you feel the back of the applique, you should be able to feel some of that heat. The Teflon pressing sheet protects the very crisp edges of my applique. In the past, I have scooted the iron side to side on top of the applique without the pressing sheet, and when I did that, it scrunched up the applique with the edge. Then the iron was on top of it and I couldn't see that, and I fused my applique shape in a wrinkled, crinkled mess, and then you can't get it back off. So I've learned that the Teflon pressing sheet really protects the edges of the applique and gives us even pressure and gives us a very crisp finish. It also protects the background fabric and the applique fabric so that it doesn't get scorched from the heat of the iron. It prevents any gunk from the iron transferring onto the applique or the background, and it protects the adhesive, the fusible, from seeping out around the edges of the applique and getting onto the sole plate. So I'm never going to have to clean my sole plate while doing this type of fusible technique with the Teflon pressing sheet. The Teflon pressing sheet is made to clean. You just wipe it off with a damp towel. So if you ever have any problem with that, the residue will just wipe away. So after I give this time to fuse properly, I will go ahead and remist the back side of the applique block and fuse it again from that side. We often get asked, how do you prevent gumming on the needle when you're top stitching or when you're quilting? This is the phase where you're able to address that. If this is fused properly at this phase, this is a permanent adhesive product. It can be washed and dried many times without any risk of the components falling off. We at Urban Elements do not top stitch any of our applique. You have to be a really good machine top stitcher to be able to do that without detracting from the applique, and it's not necessary if you fuse properly to top stitch it, so we do not do it. We do quilt over top of our quilted samples, but in the case of the glass jar, the cookie jar that's on my presentation table, that was just fused with either an iron or with a blow dryer, again using steam, onto the glass, and it was fused permanently. You can fuse these appliques on wood, glass, metal, plastic, as long as you can apply heat, canvas, burlap, cotton, silk, linen, any kind of item, as long as you can apply heat to the product. So now that I've fused this from the front, I'm going to go ahead and flip the block over. You can see it's perfectly dry, but I'm going to go ahead and remist it again from the back and make sure that any of those compound components, like the double circles or the flowers where they overlap, that this fusible material has had a chance to go through all the layers. And at this point, you don't have to use the Teflon pressing sheet, but I'm going to. And when I'm finished, this block again will be completely dry. Even though we've trapped the moisture in between the sheet, we will make sure that the block is completely dry before we proceed. Well, one of the things I will say, all of these kits that we have at Urban Elements, they all have finished samples. Many of the samples that would hang at Quilt Market or Quilt Festival are here in the studio. So we don't do this just solely so that you can see what the block looks like or the quilt looks like, but we do it to show you or educate you in the process of how to properly do these, or at least in one way to do these. But also there's a second thing, and that is to show that you can certainly personalize these by your fabric selection. Now, the sample for this was on a white background, and I chose this butter and bright yellow for my hummingbird garden, and you can see that it makes a very big impact on the effect of the quilt. For some people it would be way too bright, and it may even be too bright for the designer, I don't know. But it just goes to show you that you can certainly personalize these to your own taste, and it makes a big impact. Now, if you wanted to personalize even further, almost all of our applique kits are also sold as a paper pattern. The paper pattern would be the placement guide that you see me working with. You would get that alone. Some of those, because of their size, could also be downloaded as a self-print paper guide, and you would purchase that through the website and then just use your own printer. By doing so, you could turn this laser cut applique into a needle turn applique, or your own raw edge applique using your own fabric and scissors to cut out the pieces. They're also available as SVG files, which again is a download that you would utilize on a machine similar to a Cameo Silhouette or a Brother Scan and Cut, and you would fuse your own material and then run it through your machine one component at a time using the digital files to cut out these shapes. So there are all different ways for you to personalize this as you see fit. But if you've ever done some of the scan and cut, you'll know that it is a lengthy process because you're running these through one piece at a time. And it really is certainly no cheaper, even though you're using fabric that you have yourself. You have to fuse all of the fabric and cut all of the pieces. And so it really is a huge time saver just to get a kit. And you know that the fabric all looks good because it's already been pre-selected and seen. You're not guessing on your values, but it's available in all of those different ways. So this is block 2 finished. This again was one of the square blocks. There are either square blocks or rectangular blocks, which are the equivalent of 2 side by side or 2 stacked blocks. So far we've only seen these. Again, I'm really happy with the background fabric that I got to pick out for my kit. And really it comes down to value. The background is a light to light medium, and the fabric selection on the batiks is medium to medium dark, and so I felt like it worked enough for me. Some people may want more value, some people may have been happy with less, but that is a personal choice. But I'm really relieved that the background fabric seems to be working really well to my taste. I can run my hand over here, everything's perfectly smooth. That was helped in part by using that Teflon pressing sheet, and I know now that this is permanently fused. I could run this through the washer and the dryer multiple times and none of these components would peel off. All raw edge applique, you may get a little bit of a soft edge whether you top stitch it where you're perforating the edge or whether you don't, but we feel like that laser cutting really helps seal the edges. So this is block 2. I would love to see, now we know that we've sold thousands and thousands of these kits, so we would love to see you post some of the pictures of yours, either just a block or of a finished quilt. You've seen many samples here in the studio, so we'd love to see some of yours. Also, if you would like to comment on some of the different ways that you've gifted these kit quilts to people, family members for special occasions, wedding gifts and so forth. So we'd love to hear your comments on that. I'm going to go ahead and conclude this particular video at this time, but we would like to thank you for stopping by the studio and spending time with us. We really appreciate it if you share a video, whether it's on YouTube or Facebook, with anybody in your community that would you might think would enjoy the product or the video, and for liking and sharing. But I really like the comments. I get to see those personally, and I get a kick out of reading those. It makes me feel good. And I guess that's it for today. So thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you again next time. And in this series, it'll be for Block 3.